Dr. Mukesh Aghi joins us. Dr. Aghi, there have been several developments, almost a statement a day coming in from the Trump administration, from Donald Trump himself, to his trade advisor, Peter Navarro. When you look at these statements, Dr. Aghi, where is the trade talk really heading? Even when the signal that is coming in from the Commerce Ministry so far is that New Delhi believes that the communication channels are open.
Well, channels are open between the two countries, and both countries are talking to see where to find the common ground. I think Peter Navarro's comment on SCO and his comment on India buying oil from Brahmins is not positive. I think it's important that we maintain certain amount of decorum when you're dealing with two countries. But overall, I believe that the relationship continues to move in the right direction. Yes, there is some rhetoric, but we should learn to ignore that and not react to that because in every aspect, US companies are investing in India. We are seeing the trade going up. We are seeing people-to-people relationship moving along in a positive way. So I would say overall, with all the rhetoric coming in between the two countries, the relationship stands strong in every manner.
Okay, despite Donald Trump's claims of the US being the greatest victim of trade of India in this trade, the US trade deficit with India is $41.5 billion, which is significantly lower than with China or the European Union, Mexico. What drives this rather dramatization of the India-US trade relationship, and how should Indian policy makers and business leaders interpret it?
Well, I think you have to understand that India had a trade surplus with the US for around $40+ billion. And India was committed to buying more energy from the US to bring that trade deficit to even par. And that process was continuing. And suddenly we had through social comments coming from the president, then by Peter Navarro. Does that impact India? Yes, I'm seeing a lot of emotions here, but we are not seeing those emotions in the US arena. The companies are committed with India itself. They're looking at the investment, they're looking at the supply chain in every aspect. So I don't think there is much of an emotional impact we are seeing from the corporate America. But yes, here the media has gone into frenzy and reacting to every comments, every tweet coming in. But overall, I would say that India has reacted in a very, very dignified manner, trying to basically not react to some of the comments being made, keeping its focus down to maintaining the relationship and not dignifying some of the comments being made by people like Peter Navarro. So I think overall, with time, I would say emotions will come down and both sides will sit down and find a viable way to have a win-win value proposition between the two countries.
Okay, then what is the most realistic path for India to protect its sensitive sectors, like agriculture and dairy then?
Well, you have to understand, India was one of the first country to start negotiation with the Trump administration. And they basically were way ahead of everybody else. For whatever reason, the trade deal didn't close. I think it's important to understand that in that deal, what we are seeing is that India was able to protect some of the dairy side, some of the agriculture side, and you have to understand that certain red lines no political leadership can cross, and that is protecting the interest of the farmers. You have a country where almost 50% of the workforce works on the farm and almost 14% of the GDP comes from that. So I think it is important that we have to explain to the negotiator, to the media, to the people in the US, why this is a red line. And it's not like protection, it's just trying to save the jobs and livelihood of the subsistence farmers in India. So I think more communication, both directly and through the media, will help.
And Dr. Aghi, former US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has accused President Donald Trump of jeopardizing America's ties with India to favor his family's business deals in Pakistan. He said, and I'm quoting him, on a bipartisan basis going back decades, the United States has worked to build its relationship with India, the world's largest democracy, a country that we should be aligned with on technology, talent, and economics. And then he goes on to say, etc., etc. Do you see these comments can perhaps do some kind of, or should I say, force rethink in Trump administration?
Well, you have to understand that there were certain breakdown between the relationship between the two countries. One that happened in 1971, and then we had one after 1998. And then since then, President Clinton started the process, went down to President Bush, and onward. And so for the last 25 years, both countries have made effort to build a relationship, which is basically aligned geopolitically, economically, technological wise. We have over 300,000 students studying in America itself. And so in every aspect, the relationship was a win-win partnership. And the sudden, basically, social media messaging from President Trump did have an impact. And then suddenly you have a 25% tariff followed by a second tariff of 25%. It does put pressure on the relationship, especially in India, and also for the American companies, because you have to understand a lot of American companies are manufacturing components here for their global supply chain. Now they will have to pay 50% a tariff on those goods, and it makes their goods not cost effective. But at the same time, you have garment workers, you have jewelry workers, you have leather workers, and our estimate is that this impacts roughly 5 million jobs in India. So I think it is important that we are able to work and find the right positioning with the Trump administration, so there's a reasonable, acceptable tariff between the two countries, and so we can move forward.
Now, coming to that statement of Modi's war, Dr. Aghi, how valid is this criticism in light of similar purchases by many other nations? And what are the implications for US-India bilateral relations then?
Well, I think the comments saying that this is Modi's war is incorrect. This is not India's war. There's no India's dog in this fight between Ukraine and Russia. Yes, with Biden administration, India was in fact coaxed into saying, hey, go buy a certain price point Russian oil. That's going to take the pressure off across the world and price point for the rest of the world itself. So on that basis, India moved ahead and started procuring Russian oil. Yes, China buys much more. When you look at European Union, their purchase of LNG coming in from Russia is in value much more itself. Yes, US has imported basically fertilizer and other aspect of goods from Russia. So I think to basically point the finger at India, I think is not right, incorrect. And it does have an impact on the sentiment and on the relationship. But I think what we have seen is substantial amount of maturity coming out of India, not reacting to those accusations, keeping his head down and trying to find avenues to keep on building the relationship. So I think to summarize, I think it's unfortunate those comments were made and they were inappropriate.
And given the actual numbers for US trade deficits with major partners, China $270 billion, European Union $161 billion, Mexico at $157 billion, etc., etc., why does the US political narrative so frequently then single out India? And what impact do you think it'll have on trade negotiations?
Well, I don't know why India is being picked up, because yes, China, Canada, Mexico, others have a much bigger trade surplus with the US. Yes, US would like to bring that surplus down, and that's the whole objective is put in tariffs so you can bring the surplus, it's a deficit, US deficit on the trade side further down itself. Um, India gets uh, basically uh, pointed by the trade negotiator, but more from the White House. And I think that's not healthy because it just kind of leaves a bad taste among the negotiator that if you're talking a trade deal between the two countries and you start throwing in some of the social media true, I mean, so on the Truth Social also talking about that India is fueling the Russian war. I think that does not help. And it is important that we just basically, as India has done rightly, ignore it, stay focused, and then get the trade deal done.
In terms of timeline, where do we stand in the India-US trade talks? How soon do you think it will materialize?
I think we have to get the temperature down. That's important. We have to get emotions out. Uh, and at the same time, see how fast we can move because you do have workers who are getting impacted. You have folks who are um, basically would like to keep on maintaining the supply chain between the two countries, both from the India side and both from the US side. I believe that sometime by October, November, we hope things will settle down and the secondary tariff on India is removed and the trade talk continues.
Okay, okay. My last question then, Dr. Aghi. Uh, do you think the trade talks will proceed only? Is there a condition, a possible condition that if United States decides to remove that punitive tariff of 25%, which is being called as Russia tariff?
I think it'll be helpful. I think it'll send a message that US is serious about trying to make a deal with India, just like with other countries. I think it also basically sends a message that the relationship is not just about tariff fear, or relationship is not just about leveraging India to put pressure on Putin itself. I think relationship is much broader and deeper, and it's important that we maintain the momentum on building this partnership both for the near and the long term.